Back-to-back games, the Golden State Warriors do not look good. They lose to the Miami Heat in a game that it felt like the Heat just took control of early and had it on cruise control the rest of the way. Warriors are not good right now. How can they get good? When can they get good? That's what we're discussing on today's show.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
There's not many defenses in the world that can stop him.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and you will get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can check out the show on YouTube. We stream after the games live. Also, you can check us out the morning after or just about as soon as the live show ends. We post these things wherever you get your audio podcast. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That's the flagship station. Also covered the Golden State Warriors for CBS News Bay Area in downtown San Francisco. Good time to tell you about our free daily newsletter. It's lockedondaily.com. And if you don't want to hear anything about the Golden State Warriors, the good news is there's also nuggets from around the NBA, and it's just a good place to make you a little bit more knowledgeable. It's delivered right to your inbox, and it's free at lockedondaily.com. Co-host today, I got to change your name. That is not Alan Stiles. That is my good friend, Matt Kolsky, who is on the show today. Kolsky, good to see you. He worked for 95.7 The Game, also KNBR, covered the team. On today's show, I want to discuss the game a little bit, but not get a ton into it because it was, quite frankly, not a thing of beauty. Wasn't a lot of fun to watch. I can't imagine it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. So I want to focus on the future. How is Golden State Warrior going? How are the Warriors going to rectify this thing? When are they going to rectify this thing? I feel like it's the meme where they're just the stick figure with the stick poking the ground saying do something. And they're not doing anything and nothing's changing. We're in Groundhog's Day. Let's start with the game, Kolsky. What did you see tonight in the Heat's 114-98 win over Golden State?
Well, I saw – I mean, listen, it's easy to look at the offense, which is bad right now. And they're just not shooting the ball. Steph obviously was pretty good tonight, but Schroeder's been a disaster since arrival from a shooting perspective. And look, I'm prepared to give him, big picture. I can look at Dennis Schroeder and say, tough spot, go from being the lead dog on a team whose games don't mean anything to being like second, third, fourth banana, who knows, on a new team that plays a very specific style that you've never played before, that has been struggling before you ever got here, and all of a sudden there's pressure on you to keep them in a playoff race. I get it, but they can't afford it, Buddy Hield, streaky player. We knew this coming in. I said it 1,000 times when he was hot as fish grease. Just remember, the lull is coming. But this has been a really long lull, and they can't afford it because DeAnthony Melton's hurt. And now that Kuminga's hurt,
makes you want to give him some money and keep him as a part of the future, right? If it's not broken, don't fix, or excuse me. If it's not broken, there's no need to fix it, right? And he's a portion of the team that, to me, does not appear to be broken. So you give him the money that he wants, and he's a competent part of this second timeline that we've talked about so much. No one else really is. He's the only one.
I can't rule out an opportunity involving moving Kuminga that is difficult to turn down, right? But when you watch a game like tonight and they just have no friggin' juice, man. Like, I keep using this word because I don't know what else to call it, but like, listless is one word for what I watched tonight. And particularly in the half court, if they get a team like Miami that bamboozles them with half court defense, they don't have a half court offense to beat that. The only thing they have is Steph being magical, which he was for much of the night tonight. But I think you see when he's asked to do that much, turnovers go up. Fourth quarter shooting percentage probably goes down a little bit. I don't have specific evidence to support that, but it sure feels like it. And tonight felt like a night where if Steph didn't have 50, they didn't have a chance. And
no
it's
juice.
not, yeah. But the thing is, I do want to say this before we jump off this game, because I'm with you. It's a bummer. It's easy to look at tonight and say, I got the final box finally. 40% overall, 28% from three.
Shot it 50 times. They just kept chucking it up.
Right. There it is. That's the game. Bad shot distribution, bad 3-point shooting. You lost. That's what it is. But I got to say, giving up 114, was it, to this version of the Heat required some pretty lazy defense too. I was disappointed, and there were stretches where they all of a sudden there's the defense, and guess what stretches?
Third quarter.
Yeah, the ones where they were coming back in the game. That's where suddenly it was like, oh, the intensity has turned up on the defensive end for the Warriors. They just can't afford performances like this, and I think you see so clearly when there's so little energy throughout the team what the effect of Kuminga truly can be. And it's going to be a long 3 weeks, man.
Scoring contributions, Curry had 31 on 11 of 22. He was 8 of 17 from deep, also had 7 rebounds in the game. This is back-to-back games where Steph Curry has not had a single assist as he puts up a goose egg in that stat. Trace Jackson-Davis, the other star of the night, had 19 and 7. Also had a couple of steals. Draymond had 7, 10, and 9, flirting with a triple-double. Wiggins, pretty disappointing, 9 points on 4 of 10 shooting, also had 5 rebounds. Schroeder had the 5 points on 2 of 10. Schroeder. Lindy Waters had 6. Kyle Anderson had 5. Buddy Hield had 11. Moses Moody played just 15 minutes. We'd been, saying, hey, maybe he gets some of Buddy Hield's minutes with Hield's struggles. Again, just 15 minutes. It brings up the question, why did they extend Moses Moody? I mean, if you're not going to play him, understandable, but why do you give him that? I don't want to say fat, but why do you give him a guaranteed contract before the season even begins if he's this little a part of your rotation on almost a consistent night? That's a much higher pay grade than my own.
Well, see, I asked the reverse question, though. I ask the reverse question to that, which is,
what is that?
Once you've paid him, why not play him?
Amen.
Buddy Hield played 24 minutes tonight.
He's not a part of your long-term future, is he? I mean, he may be a stopgap this season, but you're not building anything through Buddy Hield.
He wasn't good. I mean,
he hasn't been.
No, and it's the best way to use Buddy Hield is to, have it be 25 when he's shooting and 2 to 5 when he's not. Make a decision on him early, give Looney some minutes. And, Lindy Waters, I guess, was better than Moses Moody tonight, marginally speaking. But is he more a part of your future than Moses Moody? Because that shouldn't be the case. And I'm not now going to hop on the Moody thing and ride it the same way I have the Kuminga stuff, because I don't think he's that significant of a player.
No, and he can't defend.
But he can defend. He's not great. And he gets beat
a lot
on the first step more than you would like. But I will say this. Lots of people get beat on the first step in the NBA all the time. Again, Lindy Waters, marginally better defender. Buddy Hield, not a better defender. Okay? Buddy Hield's getting beat on the first step anytime anybody wants to beat him off.
I think we're spending too much time on Buddy Hield and Moses Moody is
the
argument. It's kind of the entire premise, right? Because that's all you've got. So that's why we're talking about him, because
and that's
you got to go with. Yeah, and that is the issue. And apparently no Jimmy Butler for the Warriors. He doesn't play for the Bulls for the Heat as he is suspended. Mark Spears. Yeah, Mark Spears reporting during Tuesday's NBA Today that Jimmy Butler is not a priority, will not be a Golden State Warrior, but there is some players that are on their radar. We will tell you who those players are coming up on Locked On Warriors.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
All right, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here. From big upsets to game-winning drives, it's better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5. You'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website and share betting lines around your team or league. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets on FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I don't need the spread to know that the Golden State Warriors did not cover in today's game. In fact, they weren't even close. Vegas giving the Warriors a 9.5-point edge. They were giving Miami 9.5. Vegas, you keep a bunch of those points because it was off by about 25 as the Heat win by 16. If you want to make more Warriors bets, you can do it on FanDuel.com.
I don't give a damn about no damn Drake night.
All right, the Golden State Warriors are going into an easier stretch now, but unfortunately without Jonathan Kuminga and with this roster that they currently have, I mean, the Warriors, are a part of an easier stretch for almost any team at this point. They've been playing sub-500 basketball for quite some time, and they follow up a 2-game winning streak, their first since November 22nd, with a 2-game losing streak. Mind you, the Miami Heat come in and outplay them and out-energize them in a game where they were going on a back-to-back.
After double OT.
After double OT in Sacramento, a back-to-back. ESPN's Mark Spears, and that's unacceptable, by the way, reported during Tuesday's NBA Today that Jimmy Butler is not a priority. A center is a priority. Yeah! I mean, everyone's fired up about hearing that. I mean, how long has this team gone without having a traditional center? And this is what Spears said. I'm hearing that the Warriors literally want to go bigger than Butler. And what I mean by that is they're one of the most undersized teams in the league. They're trying to get a big to go alongside Draymond Green. People on their list include Nikola Vucevic, who has probably been the top guy on that list. Keep an eye on some guys like Walker Kessler and John Collins with the Utah Jazz, Valanciunas with the Washington Wizards, Nurkic. Maybe a bigger wish is Miles Turner, who will be an unrestricted free agent, but the Warriors do not want to trade Jonathan Kuminga or Andrew Wiggins. Right now, the Warriors seem much more interested in adding a big to go alongside Green with this team as compared to another shooting guard. The floor is yours. How do you feel about hearing that?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think we've said before, like, you would absolutely have to trade Wiggins and probably Kuminga to get Jimmy Butler. I don't think I certainly wouldn't do both. And if it's Wiggins and a bunch of other things, like we've talked about it, are you a little better? Probably. But is it a big enough difference to, sell the farm, so to speak? I don't think so. They're also a small team for the 5th, 6th year in a row since the departure of Andrew Bogut. They haven't really had a tall big that they can play for more than 15 minutes a game, and it's hurt them.
They've had a few more in the role player spot, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, JaVale was a great 15 minutes a game, but not more really.
And Bogut came back to the Warriors, so basically you're
That
not saying
no.
Well, we're going to count it for this case. So if anyone comes in, they say, "What about Zaza?" Bogut played after Zaza with the Warriors. We forget that.
Zaza, even Zaza, like he's sort of in the loony category of like you love to have him, but you don't love to have to play him for 30 minutes. Almost all the guys on that list, you're happy to play for 30 minutes.
So let's start with Vucevic, because I watched him last night at United Center. Kylan and I went to the game to watch Wemby. I'll give you the floor. What's up?
Just John Collins, he's also 6'9", 6'10", right? Like, I don't know how he solves the problem. he's more of a Kuminga replacement at this stage than anything.
So let's talk Vooch.
I think, yeah.
Skilled for his size. I thought he had nice touch in the game last night. Does have stone feet. Not a quick dude by any means. Plays around the perimeter a good bit, which could be a good thing for this team. It allows you to stretch the floor a bit, not clog up the lane.
Let you play Kuminga at the 3.
Yeah, willing passer. At least I saw that in last night's game. Seemed like a good passer, plays hard. My final take on him was not the end-all, be-all, but a buy low veteran piece that makes you better tomorrow. Not a part of your future, this entire Steph Curry tenure, right? But he makes you better tomorrow, and it would not take you a lot to get him. Now, I'll say this, watching the Bulls last night, Zach LaVine would have been a nice addition to this team with, Chris Paul's salary, if you could have found a way to finagle it. That's someone that can go out there and get a bucket and gives you a little positional size. And, if you could have thrown in hindsight, thrown pods into that mix or whatever it may be, like LaVine's a dog. He's good. Unfortunately, you can't make that work now with the financials. And that is kind of the issue that the Warriors are in. They're just kind of stuck.
Yeah, now that costs you Andrew Wiggins if you want to do it. And, that is – it's a certainly more than that. But, you can't get it done without Wiggins is my point, right? I mean, the thing that all those names on your list have in common, even Miles Turner, is that in theory you can get it done without using Wiggins or Kuminga, right? You can Kyle Anderson, GP2, and then you pay the tax in first-round picks, at least in the Miles Turner case. In the Vooch case, I don't even, Kyle Anderson, who I believe is on a 1-year contract, Gary Payton, who is on a 1-year, expiring deals and one first rounder at the most, but you might not even have to give up a first rounder for maybe throw Moses Moody in the deal, but Vooch would be easier to get. No question. He does not help defense. Now, can you cross your fingers and hope that playing next to Draymond Green, because he's not an idiot, Vucevic, it's not that he doesn't care. It's just, as you said, he has feet of stone. He moves like the ogres in Lord of the Rings.
He moves like a big 6'10" guy. He's not a nimble-footed 6'10" guy.
He moves like George Mikan. He's an old school mover for a 7-footer, and I think he might be 7 feet. That's effective on offense in a variety of ways, and he is shooting the lights out this year. So he could stretch the floor. He could put Kuminga at the 3. You could say, hell, when we put Steph, Schroeder, Kuminga, Draymond, and Vooch out there, or, Wiggins in there for one of those guys, right? The other guys, the 2, 3, 4 positions are going to defend so well. We'll live with Vooch. I don't think you're going to win anything with you're either going to have to bench him, and this remains the key issue for the Warriors. When they're at their best, it's almost always with Draymond playing center. So, yes, you can go get a center like Vooch, and it will help this offense. Certainly the half-court offense, because he can score in the post, and he can pass out of it, and he can shoot the 3. A big-ass dude who can do all those things will help your offense. But do you have to put him on the bench for defensive reasons in the playoffs anyway? And if so, is it worth giving stuff up? That's why Miles Turner's the dream, because he can almost play like a 3 offensively at times, but he can also do everything you want defensively, and he can run the floor, which is really still the modus operandi of the Golden State Warriors, right? Walker Kessler has had a weird year, but even he moves a lot better than Nick Vucevic and plays defense in a way that would distinctly help this team. And I'm just not sure I want to use any of the trade assets I have if I'm the Warriors on a guy who is either going to be on the bench or hurting the defense in the playoffs.
Okay, so we're going to get into some two timeline talks. The second timeline that I guess was unofficially dubbed for Joe Lacob. We're going to get into that because the SF Gate had almost a hit piece on it, and there were some banger quotes in there that I want to read out to you, and we'll discuss that whole situation. But just finishing up on how this team can get better right now, one of the names that we brought up was Zion Williamson as a potential buy low candidate. Sounds like that is not on the radar either. So it sounds like being creative, making smaller moves, and turning players that aren't necessarily working right now or expiring deals. I mean, those are attractive in today's NBA, right? A team that has players of value, but they just don't really fit their timeline or what they're trying to do currently. You give them expiring deals and bring them back for a couple of years. That can be one way to go. But there is just not a ton that this team can do right now. Now, at the same time, tons of people in the chat and plenty of Warriors fans, I think deservingly so, have criticized Steve Kerr. Has he been a Hall of Fame-like coach this season? No. Has he in the past? Yes. With that being said, what I question to everyone that says fire Kerr and all your problems go away. I mean, fire Kerr, could you piss off Curry? Maybe that whole thing crumbles. The one great thing that you have going right now, the show, could that go away? Maybe. Fire Kerr, who's winning with this roster? That's my question. Like, the issue isn't necessarily, he can be one of the issues. There can be a lot of things said at once. But the main issue goes back to the fact that they had lottery picks, and one of those lottery picks is not on the floor right now. He's turned out to be pretty good, and the other one's turned into, as of right now, nothing burger for the most part. You've made some free agent signings. One of them's out for the season. You turned another one into Dennis Schroeder, who can't hit a shot. That's the issue to me, is your team's just flat out not good enough, and no amount of coaching can fix that. So that brings us to our next conversation of Joe Lacob. It's time to make this team better. How is he going to do it? That is what Matt Kolsky is going to answer on the other side. We got 12 minutes to get into a wide variety of hows, who's, what's, whens, and whys. We will do that on the other side of Locked On Warriors.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
All right, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Prizepicks. Prizepicks and basketball season is heating up. There's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with Prizepicks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, Prizepicks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. Pick more or less, at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You think LeBron's going to drop 30? Maybe Luka's getting more than 8 assists. Prizepicks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. I've been using Prizepicks all season. I told you last week I picked Tatum and Edwards to have more than 29 and 25 respectively. I lost on the latter, but that's the kind of action that you can do on Prizepicks. And sometimes you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. It's the best way to keep the game exciting, and it's the perfect time to join. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks, run your game.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Well, the only thing that can stop Steph Curry right now is the front office. And I hate to give a backhanded slap to a front office that has literally thrown just millions upon millions into turning this franchise into what it is today. But lately they've been sitting on their ass. And I don't know if the perfect move is out there. I don't know if the get right pill, the fix is an easy one. I don't necessarily know what you do. But I will say this, the SF Gate had a little hit piece on the 2 timeline. I thought it resonated, so I'm going to read this and you're going to react. The second timeline that Joe Lacob is so fond of, despite denials, starts when Stephen Curry is gone, not a moment before. Lacob, an otherwise intelligent man who genuinely loves the game of basketball, still can't seem to grasp this. A belief that because of his success and business acumen, he can break reality to his will. This bizarre belief that people outside the Bay Area will still give a damn about the Golden State Warriors 5 seconds after Curry retires, that the franchise will perpetually be one of the most valuable NBA teams and that the brand is strong enough to withstand anything. It's not. The brand is Stephen Curry and the magic that trails in his wake. There's no magic in media deals or resplendent courtside lounges that come with a personal butler. Something must be done. Most agree. But at this point, what can be done? The article even compared it to the post-Michael Jordan Bulls, said it's a fair comparison. Once America's team, now relegated to a confusing sideshow in the Midwest, not painfully relevant, despite the brand and the great logo and the storied history. They've had some good years, but the franchise could obviously never replace Michael. And that's a fascinating article because it's like the rebuild starts when Steph Curry walks out the door, and it's almost like they're trying to do two things at the same time. But again, what do? You don't necessarily have the assets with the new CBA to make drastic changes. They got to be fine margin moves, or you got to really blow the thing up. You got to do one of the two.
Who wrote that?
I don't have the exact name in front of me. Give me 2 seconds, and I will tell you who it is. You like that? It was Alex Sequig, columnist.
I'm just gonna bet that columnist is younger than 35. Certainly 35. Maybe younger than 30. You don't remember the end of the Bulls. I do. I was here. I was going to games regularly. Nothing could be further from the truth that this is like the end of the Bulls. And in fact, it proves Joe Lacob's point, how different this is. The end of the Bulls was brought about by an owner who has consistently then and now shown himself in two sports to be a dirtbag bum and unwilling to spend money to make teams great and willing to choose a general manager's ego over one of the greatest teams of all time. That's not what's happening here. What happened here was an incredibly it was an act of God's circumstance. One of the great dynasties of all time collapsed so suddenly with dramatic injury that you were left with what looked like a championship competitive core and the second overall pick in the draft. Unfortunately, it wasn't a draft where that second overall pick had great trade value. You know, and I wonder if that article has any suggestions of where things could have been done differently. Certainly, they could have not picked James Wiseman. I mean, that is the most obvious thing that they did wrong, right? There are several other guys, LaMelo Ball being the most discussed, who were picked after James Wiseman, Tyrese Halliburton, quite obviously, right? Like, that's the easiest answer. But guess what? That's still two timelines. If Tyrese Halliburton had been the pick, it would have been even more two timelines because you've basically got Steph's replacement being his understudy, right? So I think a lot of the criticism of two timelines, A, makes a mountain out of a molehill, and B, ignores context. If you want to say they blew it picking James Wiseman, that's absolutely fair. It was a bust. You know, that happens. But if you want to say they 100% would have been in a better spot if they had traded that for whatever they could get at that time, like that might have been, you know, a couple years of a mid-level play. Like that second overall pick was not worth a tremendous amount. And remember, they won a title after that. So it's hard to say that an attempt to take advantage of a unicorn of a situation, right? It was the right thing to do. They didn't execute it perfectly. They still won a title afterwards. But yeah, it'd be great if they had drafted LaMelo Ball even, but certainly Tyrese Halliburton. I'd have to look back at the draft to remember who else they would rather have than James Wiseman. Almost anybody, right? Like, it's not rocket science. Wiseman isn't even really an NBA player that we know of. But I just don't think there were so many tremendous opportunities that would have principally changed where they are today. And certainly there has not been an opportunity to trade Kuminga for anything resembling what his ceiling appears to be, right?
Okay, so the argument then becomes, if you're going to put everything into Steph Curry's remaining season, you probably need someone that's on his level, right? I don't know if the fine margin move of bringing in a Vucevic and then maybe turning like someone into Neesmith from the Pacers, whatever
But
it
I
may
think
be,
you
and
have
just
to ask yourself honestly, is there a move that makes us a likely championship winner?
I think people just want to see something. I think
What is
after the last
something?
couple of seasons,
But isn't Kuminga something? Weren't we just seeing something? Like, he's hurt now. That's a real bummer, and it probably tanks the season. But what would you have them do?
I mean, Dennis was something, right?
Yeah,
that was
they're
that was
trying to
something.
do something. It's just like, it's not realistic to believe there's always an option that would make you a championship contender. And I sincerely do not believe that the Golden State Warriors franchise has missed a lot of opportunities to be a franchise that is contending, right? I think they have taken all the swings available to them. Have they always connected? No. Have they always 100% been the right swings? I can't say that. Again, maybe there was a trade for the number 2 overall pick that would have had them win 2 championships since then. But it's a pretty good record since Joe Lacob took over. And here's the important thing that article gets wrong. Steph Curry is obviously the franchise and the brand and all of that. No one is denying that. The reason the Bulls have cratered is because ownership sucks. With good ownership, the Warriors should be able to remain a relevant and at least on the radar franchise in a way that they never were before Steph Curry. Good ownership can sustain some momentum from a player like that because good ownership tends to bounce back reasonably quickly, not wallow in mediocrity for 25 years like the Chicago Bulls.
It's funny because one of the moves that I love out there is obviously the Zion one, because it's such a Hail Mary play that if it worked out, it would be incredible, right? You get, I mean, he put up what, 22, 8 and 6 again today in his welcome back tour in 28 minutes. Like, he's just so damn good whenever he's on the floor. And if you could just bring him in to play with Steph Curry the next couple of seasons and keep a part of your core intact, I don't know who it would be because you'd have to give up someone of that core. Like, it would just be entertaining. And if it worked out, it would be like, all right, you made a power move and it worked out. The issue that I have with the front office just continuing on the course that they're on, just being like, hey, let's sneak into this thing and we may have a chance, is A, I don't think they're good enough. That's the big thing. And B, they're just tied up in this core for what seems like a long time, right? 3-4 years. They're tied up into this thing. And if you aren't willing to make that big trade, then you're kind of just reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic and hoping that, something sticks.
What makes you think they're unwilling?
What do you mean?
Trade? Well, if you're unwilling, you said if you're unwilling to make a big trade, what is the big trade they're not making?
The big trade they're not making is blowing this entire thing up.
So what does that mean to you? That means trading Steph Curry? Because I think that would be unconscionable. That is something bad ownership would do.
I mean, what are you doing otherwise is my question. You just teetering around?
You're doing the best you can with a generational talent who is the greatest player in the history of your franchise, with all due respect to Wilt Chamberlain. Like, that's what you're doing. And you're going to do your best to be as competitive as you can be throughout the rest of his career. And when he ends up having to come off the bench to shoot threes, if he sticks around for that long, you're going to ask him to take a friggin' pay cut. And if he says no, you're going to suck it up and go down with Steph Curry, because that is the right thing to do. All that being said, you do your best around that. And right now he's good enough that doing your best around that could have some really good results. And it's not out of the question that this team makes a deal for a center, gets healthy, and wins a couple playoff series. It's certainly not out of the question. a championship is pretty close to out of the question at this point.
Yeah.
But
and I got people saying,
but that's for almost everybody.
Yeah,
and I
get it.
Like fans, you got to understand, you've had a better 12-year run than most franchises will ever get. The thing is, there's not always a move that would have made you a title contender. And there's not always an easy answer when you have a few bad luck injuries and your team is playing like garbage.
No, man. And I got people in the chat saying he's seriously saying trade Steph. No, I mean, I'm not saying that. I am implying that would probably be your quickest way to flipping things around. However, you just can't do it, right? That's where the nuanced position comes into play, where it's like you can't trade him unless he asks. And then we got be specific. What should they do exactly? That's the problem. Their backs are up against the wall. There's really, I mean, I think the first course of action is go get Vooch. I saw enough of him to where it's like, if you can get him for a reasonable price, bring him in, see what he brings to the table. And then I guess look for Turner in the offseason, reevaluate, try to make the money work somehow. But there's no magic fix. That is the issue.
If you're going to go for Turner in the offseason, get him now. That's what I would say. How much could it take? He's an unrestricted free agent. Give him a couple first-round picks if that's what it takes. That is the one player who is available that I can see really fitting and giving them something they need without hurting them in any specific way.
I just want to finish real quick with a scene from The Penguin that I was watching the other night. And I'm not going to spoil it exactly what happens. But for those of you that know, at the very end, Colin Farrell, there's a scene that makes you hate him as he's looking at the Gotham skyline and he does something and he says a quote. He says, "Family makes you weak." And it brought me to kind of this team because
this is
family and championships and the dynasty and everything. It's made them kind of weak and afraid to make a move to just shake it up. And I get it. Steph Curry's not that move to shake it up. And Draymond Green apparently is the most untradeable human being on planet Earth. So if you're not going to trade him and no one wants that contract, then it's Andrew Wiggins. And Andrew Wiggins isn't really the problem, right? So it's like, I don't think he's the problem. Either. He's not the solution, but can you get the solution from Andrew Wiggins? That is the question. The answer just becomes they have a lot of money tied into 3 championship players, and it's not working. It's as simple as that. And if they're not going to make a move, then Penguin said it best. Family makes you weak. Sometimes you got to do the despicable. And I'm not implying that they trade him because that's the only thing that brings me joy on this show is watching him run around, put up 30 pieces. So for the sake of the show, do not trade him. I'm just saying they're going to have to get creative. They got to do something, right?
That is one of the best analogies I've heard in a long time. Credit to you.
The Penguin?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I know exactly what you mean. And it's you're not wrong.
All right, good stuff. This is Locked On Warriors. You can check out the show wherever you get your audio podcast. Thank you for those that hung out with us on YouTube. And remember, for the way out, don't trade Steph Curry, but do figure something out. Good to see you, Kolsky.
Oh, man, that scene killed me, bro. Killed me.
I hated him.